Tuesday morning, everybody. We're going to get started here shortly on the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show, KCOH TV Radio, The Boost, here in Houston, Texas. And I'm hoping everybody can actually hear me because my mic's been acting really weird today. So we're going to do some adjustments here. There we go. Now we got Mike, y'all. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me well. I know the Samsung mic says it's working. We'll be starting here. All right, it's Tuesday morning. KCOH TV Radio, The Boost. You're on the Laurel Rutledge Perspective Radio Show live. I am Laurel, your hostess, the hostess with the mostest. And so excited to be here. Let me make some more adjustments. Y'all ever have one of those mornings where it's like, wait, can we just start over just a real quick minute? You just feel kind of hurried. That's why today's talk, we're going to talk about silence and clarity and peace and action and all that good stuff. So, but as always, I got my vote pin on, although you can't see it under the mic. So see, got my vote pin on. So we are going to talk about voting, because we always talk about voting. And so today, the only place in the U.S. that has a general election today is in Florida. You guys have a general election. It's a county in Florida that's got one going on today. So make sure you guys go out and vote today. Also, Somalia has their parliamentary election today. So they're doing that from a global perspective. And then we have a few coming up at the end of the month. So I will continue to push those so we know what's going on around the world too in terms of voting. So many countries, it's a big deal to be able to vote and to have a free election, to be able to exercise your vote and to exercise your voice and to have participation in how you are governed. That's a huge deal. And so that's one of the reasons I talk about it so much, because it is a big deal to be able to exercise your right to vote, to be able to have your voice heard, to be able to be a participant in the process. That's huge. And so I encourage you guys to really just get registered. Go get registered. Make sure you are doing what you need to do to be able to exercise your right to vote. It is really, really important to do that. So just do it. So we also can go to, there's a few places to go. I go to Ballotpedia, which is really good for getting a copy or a sample ballot for wherever you're getting ready to vote. And they usually have those up in plenty of time. You can also go to your county elections boards to get ballots so that you can know who's on the ballot before you go vote. You can research them and look up what their positions have been. If they've been in office before, you can go see what speeches, because everybody's got a camera. So there's probably something about every person somewhere. So you can go educate yourself on the people that you're voting for. The other place you can go to is usvotefoundation.org. That's a big one. And their mantra is every citizen is a voter, which I love. So go out and try them too and find the information that you need so you can be an educated voter. So you can go out and exercise your right to vote, to have your voice heard, because there's some things that we really need to pay attention to. I mean, we're going to have to really think about education and who we put on school boards. That's really, really important, because elections start locally. And those school board positions are huge. And people tend to run for school board as kind of an entry point to everything else, right? School board, then city council, then all these kind of things. And you want to know who is on your school board, because there are people who have spent their lifetimes becoming educators. They have been educated to be educators. They are experts in setting up and distributing and giving curriculum and designing curriculum. That is not your next door neighbor. That is not the person who just happens to have kids in the school system, so all of a sudden they're an expert in education. They are not. You get to educate your kids at home the way you want to educate your kids. Good morning, Odessa. You get to educate your kids at home the way you want to educate them, but in the school, especially in those public school systems, we should be leaving that curriculum and things up to the experts, and we should absolutely challenge what's being taught in our schools, right? But do not buy into this other big lie about indoctrinating your kids because you're actually making them learn that we have a history in this country that is not pretty. Just because it's not pretty doesn't mean it's not true. And so helping people learn, that's how we avoid the same mistakes. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. That's why we learn those things. So be very cognizant of school board elections as well, and who's getting on your boards of education, who is going to be choosing which books are going to be given, who's going to be deciding whether or not a book is going to be banned from your kids. And I will say the same thing that Stephen King said. If they're banning a book, that's the book you need to go find. If they are banning a book, go find it. Go to your library, go somewhere and go find that book and go read it, because there's something in there they don't want you to know and they don't want you to understand. And be discerning. Even young people, this is how you begin to learn to understand what's going on in the world around you, to be able to read a number of different things and be able to start discerning what's real and what's true. People treat you like you're stupid. Just because you're young doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you're inexperienced. And by broadening your experience, by understanding a number of things, you get to then be the people that lead us into the future, right? So pay attention to elections. Pay attention to elections, in particular school board elections. Those are the ones that have me really, really concerned right now. Well, all of them have me concerned right now, but school board elections in particular. Okay. Coming up Wednesday, and it has been another week of technology challenges, but coming up Wednesday is the Clarify Your Vision Masterclass. That is tomorrow, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, since we lost an hour on Sunday. Central Daylight Time. It is 6 to 7:30 p.m. 6 to 7:30 p.m. And that, if you go to my website, click on the vision triangle, you can register. Clarify Your Vision Masterclass. It's going to be 90 minutes. It's free. It's live with me. Really getting clear on what it is you want. I was just on this amazing panel this morning. I wish I'd been able to stay the whole time, but I was on this amazing panel this morning with Janice Sutherland. You saw an interview with her a few weeks ago on my podcast. And it is, the trifecta, Black women over 50. What does that mean? And what does that mean for careers? What does that mean for how we show up? And one of the things we were talking about is this experience thing. And I always tell people, women, and in particular, Black women, we have experience. You're not starting over. When you start a career or something after you've had your first job, you're starting from experience, right? Especially over 50, you're starting from experience. So it's not an age thing. It is an experience thing. What are all of the things that you have done? What are all the skills that you have built? Take those and be able to tell the story about how you are the person that's going to be able to deliver the value that they're looking for. So this Clarify Your Vision, I set this up in particular, and I think it's really strong now and really important now with this Great Resignation, is being really clear on what it is you want, because you may not be happy where you are now, but if you don't pay attention to where you're going, you could wind up in the exact same thing, because if we don't examine our behaviors, we'll repeat the same ones. So come to that Clarify Your Vision Masterclass tomorrow night, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, live via Zoom. So if you register, then you'll get the Zoom link so you can join. Also, this continues Women's History Month, which was also really cool about this panel. Women's History Month. And this week on the podcast, you're going to meet my sister circle. And these are 6 women. We just chat and chill once a month. We were doing it before COVID, and then we got kind of derailed with COVID. We stay connected, but not nearly as connected as we want to. And so we're revamping that, and really excited about getting together again now that the world is opening up a bit. And you'll get to meet these amazing women on the podcast that drops tomorrow. So you'll see it, Sister Circle. The podcast episode drops tomorrow. And then on Fireside on Thursday evening, join me to talk with them live. Fireside is a really cool platform, you guys. It's a really cool platform that's engaging, and you can get up on video, and it's just really awesome. So join me on Fireside Thursday night to speak with the women that you'll meet in the podcast on Wednesday when it drops. So Sister Circle. All right. So let's get into today. Silence, clarity, peace, and action. Silence, clarity, peace, and action. And, it is, silence is hard. When things get really quiet, especially if you got a messy mind, like I have a messy mind, when things get really quiet, people try to fill the silence. And you hear that a lot, right? When there's a lull in the conversation, who's going to be the first one to jump in to fill the gap, to fill the silence? And how comfortable are you with being silent? Salespeople will tell you that is the greatest tool is silence. The greatest tool is silence in sales. And here's the challenge. When we are trying to get through things or move through things or make some things happen, we try to fill the silence as well in what are we going to do next? What's next on our list? What conversation do we need to be having? What communication do we need to have? What email do we need to put out? We get all busy, right? Noisy, and we don't give ourselves a chance to be silent. Because in that silence is where you get some clarity. In that silence is where you get clarity, where you really get a chance to just be still. And I don't mean necessarily being still in complete silence, although that is beautiful too. Incomplete silence is beautiful. But really spending that time, some people meditate, some people read, some people just put on music or something, but that place where you can quiet your mind so that you can really get clear on what it is you want and where you're trying to go, and then be able to move in action, in empowered action through that. The other thing about the silence is the peace that can come in that silence, right? Because when we are really, really busy and when it's crazy, we don't really get a chance to have that peace, that calm around what it is we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. Because we haven't given ourselves a chance to be quiet. And a lot of times, if you do have a messy mind, that silence can be disarming. It's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be doing something. I'm supposed to be thinking about something. I'm supposed to be reading something. I'm supposed to be watching something. All those supposed tos when it's just quiet. The other thing is we have, from a society perspective, we've gotten really good at promoting being busy. Like there's an award for busyness. There's a trophy for busyness. Like if you're busy, that must mean you're important. If you're busy, that must mean that you're getting things done that are supposed to get done. That's what busyness is. But sometimes busyness is just activity just to be active. It's just moving around just to be moving around. But it's not necessarily going to be moving you where you want to be moving or getting you what it is you want to get, because you're just busy. You're just busy. So it's important for us to take that time to just be still and to be silent, because in that silence, you hear those messages that you need to hear. It's where you hear those messages you need to hear. One of the things that we were talking about this morning, and I highly encourage you, if you didn't get to join the live this morning on LinkedIn, to follow Janice Sutherland on LinkedIn, and you can get the replay. I'm sure she's going to be posting the replay of the panel this morning. Her podcast is called This Woman Can. She's the CEO, former CEO out of Antigua in the telecom industry. And go back and listen to it. And one of the things that we talked about this morning is, as you begin to move through your career and you get more and more mature, right? And you get more and more comfortable with who you are, you get really clear on what it is you want to do and what it is you don't want to do, what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate. And here's the other piece of that. You get much more comfortable with quiet. You get much more comfortable with inactivity, right? Because not all inaction is bad. You get comfortable with inactivity, and you get really comfortable with where you're going to spend your time. And so regardless of what your age is, because age is just a number, regardless of what your age is, depending on what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go, what time are you spending to just be still? To just be quiet? To take the time to really get focused and centered, not only on who you are, because that's really important, and where you are, because that's really important. That's what we talk about in the 5-day alignment series. But also to get really silent so you can get clear on what it is you really want. what it is you really want, what it is you really want, not what everybody else is telling you you're supposed to want. What is it that you really want? You know, we were talking, mom and I, because my mom's in town, because we went to see Hamilton last week. We were talking about, you know, what we did and where we were going and degrees and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, at one point I wanted to go to medical school. And I'd asked her, I'm like, were you disappointed that I didn't go to medical school? She's like, no, you know, I wanted you to go, but I wanted you to do what you wanted to do. And so that whole thing about getting silent and getting still so that you can realize what it is you want to do, even if you're not totally clear on the end game, be really clear about what you're doing now and why you're doing it. You know, if I look at my career trajectory, you know, I thought I wanted to go to medical school. I wanted to graduate early from high school and go to medical school because I wanted to get out early. Now I was already early. I was always already the youngest in my class. My birthday's at the end of September, right? So I started early. So I was usually the youngest one in my class. And then I wanted to graduate a year early so I could go to medical school. And then I got to high school, and even in ninth grade, I ended up taking high school classes while I was in ninth grade. And then I got to high school and I'm like, maybe I want to actually have a senior year. Maybe I want to do that. And I'm kind of glad I did, right? I got to be flag captain and all that kind of stuff in band. It was really cool. And then I got to college and I'm like, well, you know, I'm going to do physics because I loved physics. Physics didn't love me, but I love physics. And then I realized, you know, this isn't working. And then I had to get something where I can get a job, right? And did accounting. And so now I can go back in hindsight and say, that was such the right decision. That was just the right decision. And when I look at all of my career, there's so many times that I have moved. I have lived in different places. I've worked in different places because I said yes to something. I knew what I was doing at the moment just wasn't it, right? It wasn't horrible. It just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the thing. And so when something else came up, I was like, you know what? I know this isn't it. I don't know what, Lord, this is not it. There's got to be something else. I need to start looking for something else. And every single time something else came up and I just said yes, even if it meant moving and moving away and starting over and not knowing anybody, right? Because that is a start over. When you move away and you don't know anybody, that is kind of starting over. That's starting your life over. But what happened is as I kept going to these places and I was alone, I was by myself, right? I eventually met people and networked and made friends and all of that, really good friends along the way. But in that silence, you're forced to really think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, again, for me, the early answers were because it's not the other thing. And the other thing I knew wasn't it. So I don't know that this specifically is it, but it's not the other thing. So it's got to be better than the other thing. And sometimes that's the only answer you have. But if you continue to allow yourself to be silent and to seek clarity, that question, why, is a very powerful question. Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Why am I so busy? Do I want to be busy? Why do I want to be that busy? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Is what I'm doing really what I want to do? And if so, why? And if not, why? Why? Right? We learn very early to ask that question, why. It's about understanding. It's about understanding. As I said, this year, it's about consistency and discipline with an overarching behavioral change of curiosity. Stay curious in all things because that forces you to ask questions. If I'm going to be curious, I'm going to ask questions. And I ask questions with a real desire to know and answer. That's really important. When you are curious because you really want to know an answer. You really are curious about the thing. You're not asking questions just to ask questions or just to appear interested. Genuine curiosity, you're really looking for an answer. And so if you give yourself a chance to really be still and be silent, to figure out what it is that you are wanting and why, you can get really clear on what that next thing is and where it fits. And that can give you so much peace. When I decided to leave corporate in December of 2016 was when I made the decision. And I believe I was at home that Christmas. And I just remember thinking, you know, I'm just not able to be as present. I'm not able to have as good a time. I'm not able to relax. I'm spending all my time worried about all the stuff that's going to be there when I get back. and it's just not pleasant. It's not pleasant. I'm not being pleasant. The environment I was working in wasn't pleasant. It was constant conflict. And so I had to just ask myself, I had to sit still and ask myself, why am I doing this? Now, clearly I'm not independently wealthy, so I need to work. but there are many, many options. There are lots of choices. I don't have to do this here. I don't have to allow myself to be disrespected. I don't have to allow myself to be dismissed. I don't have to allow myself to be in the middle of having to explain things that are just lies because somebody else's bad behavior, because the culture is one of survival, not of truth and integrity. I don't have to stay. And when I decided I was leaving, there was so much peace. I wasn't angry. I wasn't upset. I wasn't irritated. None of that. None of that was happening. None of that was happening. I just knew. I just knew. And so when you get quiet, when you get silent, when you really get clear, even if your clarity is not what you want to do, but the clarity that what you're doing now isn't it, you can feel, it's right, because it's just so much peace. You're not angry. It's just, you just know. You just know. And I remember walking in there in February and I'm like, yeah, I know we're supposed to be doing my performance review, but I just need to let you know that I'm resigning. And so you've got until the end of May. I think that's what I gave. I gave him a lot of time. Excuse me. We had high winds yesterday. No, it's not COVID. We had high winds yesterday. There was just so much peace around knowing, right? And being able to walk in and say, I'm done. I'm done. You do you. I'm good. I'm not upset. I'm not mad. I'm not yelling. I'm screaming. I'm not trying to find a way to sabotage anything we're doing. In fact, I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that there is succession and to ensure that it can go on, because as they say, one monkey don't stop no show. However, because I was able to sit still and get really clear, right, in that silence, I was able to move forward in a peace and a confidence that you can't buy. Money can't buy that kind of peace. And so if you're sitting now and you don't have some level of peace around what you're doing and why you're doing it and where you should be going and why you should be going, I encourage you to get quiet. Find somewhere and get still. Find somewhere and get still. Because when it's really noisy, or when your brain is hyperactive, right, hyper vigilant, as our young attorney that Jerry introduced me to said, when your mind is hyper vigilant, she called it, I couldn't figure out the words. It is hypervigilance. When your mind is that way, it's hard to understand and be clear on what it is you want. It's that whole vagus nerve, right? The polyvagal theory. Are you in dorsal, where you just want to go to bed, right? Are you in sympathetic, where you're in that fight or flight? Or are you in ventral, where you're just at peace, right? You're just at peace. You know what's going on. You're operating in your highest being. You're operating in that highest energy. That's the way we know that what we're getting ready to do is the right thing. Now, don't get me wrong. We still make mistakes, and nothing is perfect, because we are not perfect beings. There's going to be something that you stumble upon. There's going to be tech that doesn't work. There's going to be something that doesn't do what it's supposed to do. That's just life. That's just the way things occur. But, and I use but intentionally, but, and all those things are true. But if you have relished the silence, if you have spent that time really examining, without all the external noise and the chaos, really examining, what do I want? Why do I want it? Where can I get it? How is it going to happen? I'm telling you, your peace and your calm and your ability to move into empowered action is going to be exponentially changed. Exponentially changed. You are going to find a way that makes a complete difference in where you're trying to go. And it will be much more difficult for people to throw you off your game, because you're so clear. You're so clear and you're so at peace. And you will be able to let the things in that move you around to where you're supposed to be. You know, they had a meet and greet last night for all the Fireside creators. And she has one a couple times a week where we can ask questions about our shows. We can tell people about our shows. We can ask technology questions. And if you have not updated your Fireside app, be sure and do that. It's really cool, all the updates that they've done. But one of the things that we were talking about was this whole idea of they're partnering with this place to put packages together with microphones and soundboards and things like that. And they said, so if for those of you who are really, really serious, we're trying to put together something that makes it at least somewhat affordable, right? The mics and things. Now, I've got a really great mic at home, and so I don't necessarily need that. But, thinking about soundboards and how you're going to remix things and how you show up and all of that, because you want to show up in excellence. As I was listening to that and on this meet and greet last night, it hit me. It's like, I've gotten so busy trying to get things done because my technology is not reliable. So I've got to find I've found other platforms that I want to be on, and I just haven't taken the time to complete the transition. And every time something catastrophic happens that impacts what I'm trying to do, then I'm irritated and upset because it takes time to learn a new platform. And so me trying to get everything done in the platform and move to it at the same time is just a lot. But as I was listening to this last night, as they were presenting, hey, we're putting these packages together, we're partnering, so that for those of you who are serious about this, you can start to have an opportunity, an entryway to the tools that can be of assistance, right? Hey, get a hotspot. Even if you have great Wi-Fi in your house, go get a hotspot to make sure your Wi-Fi is good, which I actually am going to think about. How can you make sure your mic is good? What are the things that you can do to make sure that the technology is not a hindrance to what you're doing? How can you, even if technology is not your thing, how can you find places to get still, to get all the tools that you need to move into the thing that you say you want? Because generally, if there's something that we say we want, we may or may not have been preparing for it our whole lives, right? It may or may not be something that we've been preparing for. But there's always something else to learn to get you ready. Always. There's always something else to learn to get you ready. And so what are you doing to ensure that you're making yourself ready? That you're able to get to the thing that you want to get to. That you're able to ensure that what you're going after makes sense, is really what you want, and that what you're doing is on the path to get there. That's where that quiet, that silence, that knowing, that believing is really your superpower. And again, for those of us type A's with messy minds, it can be really difficult. It can be really difficult to get silent. You've heard Jerry a lot of times when we're chit-chatting, talking about seasons as well. People come into your life for a reason, season, or lifetime, and talk about the seasons and how sometimes, and if you follow her, if you don't follow Jerry P. Beasley, you need to follow her, and her Holy Ghost drive-bys. There are things that she'll post, and I'm like, that is so true, where you just have to begin to not only cull people out of your life, but there are some actions you need to cull out of your life. There's some things that are just, you've done them, you got everything you could out of that thing, and it's time to take what you've learned and move to your next thing. And it's not that that thing was bad. It's not that you're just abandoning that thing. It's that thing's season is over. That time is over. And if we're going to move into where we're feeling called to move into our purpose, there's always a transition. Very few people, no matter what you see on the gram, there are very few people who wake up one day and all of a sudden they are in Mecca, right? Even people like Oprah took a while to get there. She didn't start out as the Oprah we know. She didn't. She started out working. She started out studying and mastering her craft. People pay for mastery, right? Mastering her craft. That's what she started out doing. And so as you really think about getting silent and getting clear and moving in peace, that gets you into the right action. Not only moving you into action, but gets you into the right action to take. Because just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're doing the right thing or the thing that's going to move you to where you say you want to be. That's why I did these processes the way I did them. That's why I start with alignment. That's why we do a Clarify Your Vision Masterclass. That's why we do a group coaching around empowered action, and individual as well, if that's more your jam. It's because you have to get clear and aligned on who you are and where you are first. And then you have to get clear on what your vision is, your vision, clarifying your vision. And then you can take action. And your action is not always going to be perfect, but imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. And if you've done the other work, at least what you're doing has a better chance of being aligned with where you say you want to go. If you've given yourself the time to just be still. And sometimes what comes out of that silence and that stillness is, yeah, I'm not doing that. I am really clear. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I'm not going to do. What is that saying? What we're not going to do is. what you're not going to do is, right? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can have is the knowledge of what you are not going to do. Just like when you're getting really clear on that next career move you want to make, what are your non-negotiables? I am not going to commute. I am not going to be in a place where I don't have not only a seat at the table, but a voice at the table. I am not going to move. I am not going to work weekends. I am not. What are your deal breakers, right? Sometimes your clarity is about what you will not tolerate anymore based on your experience or your current life circumstances. And if your list of getting really clear on what you want starts with what you don't want or what your deal breakers are, that's okay. You just got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And the only way you can do that is to find a place to get quiet. You got to find a place to get quiet. And Jerry talks about her meditation all the time, right? And what she hears when you're just quiet and the power of that quiet. I don't know, Jerry. For me, it's difficult. The quiet is difficult sometimes, but there's so much power in that quiet.
It is.
For you?
I don't like quiet at night. Now, I'll be honest. I sleep with my television on.
Yeah.
But during the day when I can see what's going on, I like it quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's funny because I go to sleep with my television on too for the noise, right? When you're by yourself all the time, sometimes you just want some noise. But then you also pay attention to what noise you're having, right? So there's sometimes I'll turn on the TV because I'm not watching. Everything I watch is old anyway. I'm not really watching, or I've watched it so much that I already know what's going on, so I don't really pay attention. It doesn't distract my attention. But then there are other times when what I want is music in the background. Music really does something for me. It really does help center, it helps focus, it helps drive, right? Music really, the sound, the beat, the cadence, right? The melody can really do things in terms of my productivity. But you got to give yourself that chance to be whatever quiet is for you, to be quiet.
Because when you said that, I'm thinking about a scripture that I read this morning, and that's what came to my spirit this morning. And it's Luke 18, and it said, take heed, therefore, how you hear. Yes. Because when you're quiet and you're hearing the wrong things, that's tormenting.
Yes.
And sometimes that's why people can't stand to be quiet. Because as you said, chunky minds and junky brain. If you're hearing the wrong thing, then it's hard to be quiet.
Yeah. It is. When it's messy, man, and that's the thing about really getting to some kind of quiet practice. With that, for me, that's the very first thing in the morning. Because once my feet hit the ground, it's on. Right? I'm just moving. It's the very first thing in the morning. And then, of course, I get sleepy at night, right? My days start so early that I get really tired at night. So it's not usually night is a good time for me. But that ability to just be still and be okay with quiet is important, because then you can start to discern, is this just mess or is this real? Right? It's what is the story you're telling yourself? My therapist and I work through this all the time. It's like, okay, I'll say something like, well, this is this, and this, and this, and this. And she's okay, but is that true, or is that just the narrative you're telling yourself? Because we'll have experiences, and our experiences create a story for us. And so the experiences are fact. The experiences actually happen, but is the story we're telling ourselves about that experience true? And it takes quiet time and silence for you to discern that. Because we can tell ourselves all kinds of stories about who and where and why and how come and all of this, and none of that stuff may be true. The experiences, the facts are real, but the story we've woven around it may or may not be. And we don't know that until we really give ourselves time to be quiet and examine it. And that also takes courage, because sometimes you hear some mess. Sometimes you really hear some mess in between. And I'm going to take some water while we do this I'm gonna let Jerry pull up for our shout outs that we'll do mid show. But this silence thing hit me so hard this weekend. And it also hit me hard because this sister circle that you're going to meet, a safe place to chat and chill, and that's what we call it, good food, good drinks, right? Chat and chill, is because you can just show up. All these women that you're meeting for Women's History Month, they're in my village. You just get to show up. You don't have to be anything or anyone other than who you are. And you get a space to, yes, to eat and laugh, but you get a space to say, hey, here's what I'm celebrating, and know that the people around you are truly celebrating with you. Or you get to say, here's where I really need some help. Here's where I really need some help. And know that you will be able to say that in a space of no judgment. That's how you know you've really found the people that are in your village that are your closest inner circle. There's no judgment. There's truth, but there's no judgment. All right, Jared.
We're in Japan. We're in Brazil, Bolivia, France, United Kingdom, Mexico, Germany, Finland, double numbers today.
Yeah.
Amsterdam.
I love it.
Kingston, Jamaica.
Kingston.
Raleigh, Durham, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Chicago, Austin, Kansas City, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Texas.
Love it. Love it. I just love all these places that are showing up, y'all. I'm building my bucket list of travel. So, you know, if I come knocking, just know I'm coming to visit. So definitely going back to Jamaica, 2023. I'll be back in Jamaica. Probably not Kingston. I'll be back in Montego Bay. But we'll have to see.
You like Ocho Rios?
Kingston. You know, I've never been to Ocho Rios.
You would love it. I tell you, you would. You would.
Okay, we may have to put that on the list this time then. So I thank y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I love it. And I love seeing people and hearing from people all over the world. So please DM me, follow my page. I'm also live streaming on YouTube, so you get to see it there. Japan, I think this is like the second time you guys have showed up. So thank you so much, you guys in Japan. That's awesome.
Can I add something? What you just said, that now that we named all of those places, do you feel a little different now that, because what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on with Russia and the media being banned, and now we're in all these different places, do you feel different about this platform?
You know, so I was just talking about this to somebody yesterday. To those whom much is given, much is required. And I am so happy and blessed and honored to have this platform. And so if I can keep showing up, Lord says the same, I will keep showing up. I will keep speaking truth. And if I say something that's wrong and I find out, I will fix it on air. I mean, this is about authenticity and being real, and that facts really exist. So with all the stuff going on and seeing media being banned, it just breaks my heart, because there is such a powerful voice in a free press. Press now being print and radio and TV, right? And digital. There is so much power in the freedom of the press to be able to just tell the story as it occurs. And that, to me, the tragedy of what's happening in Ukraine, and we send our love and prayers and support for our brothers and sisters in Ukraine. The story that's being told that is just untrue, that they were just asking for it, that they asked to be rescued. Now, again, we have to be careful about absolutes, where there are people that are very much on the border in that country who, for whatever reason, would love to be Russian again. Absolutely. But the entire country, no. And is the entire country persecuting people who want to go back? No. So just, guys, don't believe the hype, right? Don't believe the hype. Go really see. That's why I call my shows the Rutledge Perspective. Go get the perspectives of multiple people. Go get the perspectives of people who are actually living there before you spout out what you believe to be true. Go see the people who are living there. We do still have, to some extent, a free press in the US. And we have some reporters who are going over there to get the real story. Go get the story. Because there are people around the world that are not in that country who have family in that country, who in both countries, Ukraine and Russia, who are finding ways to get information back to them. So it is important that we continue to maintain a free press. a free press, a press that is unbiased, a press that just brings you the story. That is critical that we have that. So I don't know that I feel different. I just feel more responsibility.
I was thinking because your show was basically a human resource show, right?
Yeah.
But in your quiet time, you began to get some ideas of what to do with the show. And then you began to give information about voting rights. And you said, if you don't like all of this, okay, this is what I'm going to do at the beginning of the show.
Every show.
But now if you look at it, it's like it was led to do that because you have a platform to do more than just human resource. You're getting vital information out to some people who can't get it.
Exactly. And it is so important. And I don't profess to be perfect. I don't profess to have all the answers. I do have a perspective and I do have experience. And I love to learn and I am curious. So if there's stuff that I need to understand, DM me. Just don't be ugly. Just don't be right. I don't mind having heated conversations. We're just not going to be ugly. Because we're going to argue about a point or a philosophy. We're not going to argue about somebody's character. Because see, who am I to judge? Right. And if our characters don't mesh, then we just don't do that anymore. Right. It's a season, reason, season, lifetime. That just may have been a reason that we connected, but not for a season or a lifetime. So I do think in those quiet times, I mean, that's what has happened in the quiet times, the transformation of this show, the transformation of my business to be this focused on career. Because I was adamant that I was not going to talk about careers. I was just not going to do that because even my own bias was if you say that word career, people think you're going to help them with their resume. You're going to write their resume, right? You're going to be their recruiter. And that's not what I do. That's not my zone of genius, but that's just not what I do. But it is about career because career with a big C, whether that is corporate, nonprofit, transitioning into retirement, out of retirement, back in, volunteering, into entrepreneurship, out of entrepreneurship, back into corporate. It is all encompassing. It is what you are going to do with your life's work. That's a career. What is your life's work? And so when I put together the AVA system, right? Alignment, vision, action, I put it together with the thought that no matter where you are in transforming your career or transitioning your career, all three of these things are critical for you to know and understand and give yourself a chance to dive into. Getting aligned, getting really clear on what you want, and through that vision, and then moving into empowered action. We are all already empowered. We just need to use that empowerment to take action. And we all have a voice, and elections have consequences. Mm-hmm. And so it is important that you educate yourself on the issues, that you educate yourself on history, because we are getting awfully close to redoing some stuff that we shouldn't do. We are on a fine line of doing some crazy stuff that we know, because those of us who have paid attention, we know it didn't work the first time. So why are we going back there? But if you are not paying attention, if you are not voting, if you are not exercising your voice, if you're not being active in whatever way works for you, I'm not a marcher, right? I'm not going to be the one that goes out to the march. That's not who I am. But I am going to use this platform. I'm going to speak. I'm going to write. I'm going to talk. I'm going to do all of those kind of things to get information out there. That's where my genius is. That's where my service is. That's not to say I'll never go to a march, but that just doesn't tend to be the thing that I lead with. Do whatever you need to do for you. And the way you figure out what that is get silent. Get quiet. Allow yourself to really dig deep into your genius, knowing what it is you do well, what it is you don't do well, and being okay with that. We can't be great at everything. We can't. And then surround yourself with people who fill your gaps. And understand which one you need. Do you need to fill a gap because you need to learn the skill yourself? Then you find somebody who's willing to teach. Or do you need to fill a gap because you're just going to purchase that? You're just going to get that expertise somewhere else because you're not going to take the time or make the effort to learn that thing that deeply because it just doesn't make sense for your overall goal. But you can only understand that and dive deep into that if you get still and get quiet. Let the noise go away. And however that works for you. You know, there's this thing, I've talked about it before. It's called praying in color. I found it. I went to a retreat. When I was on the vestry at my church, I went to a retreat. And one of the workshops was about praying in color. So again, I've got a hypervigilant mind, right? It's constantly moving. And so one of the things in my silent time, my devotion time, my prayer time, my meditation time, it's hard for me to stay focused. And everybody who's got a meditation practice will tell you that. Those master meditators, right, say it takes a while to really get silent, to reach that nirvana space. But this thing called praying in color is for, I think it's called right brain people, right? So it is literally a blank notebook, like a drawing pad, and you just get markers, pencils, whatever your thing is. And as you're having your devotion, you're drawing. It made a huge difference for me, a huge difference, because then I could focus, right? My hands were moving, which meant my mind could focus on what was intentional. So I could put, if I was in a mind where I was praying for a specific person, I could do a drawing around them, mark their name on the paper. I was really focused. That hand and mind connection for me is really powerful. I need that connection to be able to maneuver, right? That's really, really critical for me. So get still and find your thing. What is your thing that helps you get still? Now, Jerry is a master meditator, a master, right, at journaling and getting kind of that divine intervention. What gifts do you or kind of tricks do you have, Jerry, for people to get quiet?
I was just sharing that with some ladies that are here that were psychologists that a moment ago, that I didn't always have that because my mind was kind of scattered right before the pandemic. It was hard for me to concentrate, but when the pandemic hit, God gave me different things to do. I bought a thing to golf with. It just was hitting the ball on the patio. And that was to keep me focused. I did that 30 minutes a day, just trying to get as many balls in that hole. But I recognized it was helping my brain. Blow bubbles.
Yes.
That was to take the edge off of not being able to go anywhere.
Right.
I was used to ripping and running. So I'm like, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. Right. So blow some bubbles. So the bubbles help relax my mind. They were saying, that's what you do for therapy. And then drawing, coloring, and a coloring book, just try to stay in line. So, I believe that it takes practice to stay still, especially if you're a person that is always thinking and on the move. But sometimes that overthinking could really drown you. So you have to find little tools. Those are some of the tools: blowing bubbles, playing golf, and gardening. And now your mom's here. So
Jerry trying to tell me I'm cheating.
You are cheating because ain't nobody got their mama doing that. So now I'm going to have to really pep it up.
I'm not cheating. I am making an effective use of my resources. What did I just say? The thing about silence is you find out where your gaps are and you fill your gaps.
Yeah, but you tell other people that you're in a group with that you fill the gaps. Because me and Dr. J, we gapless.
But I also pass on the wisdom. I passed on the wisdom. And by the way, we got little buds on the blueberry bush. So excited. I'm hoping it's coming. Anyway, I digress. That's what I love about radio too. But here's the thing. As Jerry was saying, you got to find your tool. Because we do get so busy ripping and running, right? You always got somewhere to be. You always got something to do. We are just running all over the place all the time. Good morning, Sarah Willard. We get so busy ripping and running and got to be here and got to be there and got to do this and got to do that. And half the time, I don't think we even know what we're doing or why we're doing it anymore. It's just habit. We get in the habit of being busy. We get in the habit of being busy. And the only way to break a habit is to consistently focus on breaking the habit. That's why my words this year, I say consistency and discipline with an overarching behavioral mantra of curiosity. Be really curious. And because that curiosity can say, just why? Why am I so busy? Why am I so tired? Why am I doing this right now? Why am I not focused on my list? That why question is really, really powerful because it also, what I found about asking why is a short circuit. Because that's why if you're really thinking about everything, like overthinking, like Jerry was saying, if you're really an overthinker like I am, you need something that's going to short circuit that process. And for me, that question, why, is a great short circuit. Why did that happen? Because it forces me, because I'm curious, it forces me to answer the question. So it short circuits the busy, it short circuits the crazy, it short circuits that systemic, that frenzied activity and just says, oh, wait, pause. Just pause. Why am I doing this again? why are we here again? What did I come into this room for?
Lord, what was the pause for you when you were talking about the fireside chat, and how you were concerned about doing that because they kept saying a show. But you had been doing radio for now for 2 years. So when did you get that clue that, wait a minute, why am I tripping on this?
When I got still. So and when I talk to people, right? Because again, there are words matter. Words matter. And we are, I'm going to use the word victim just because I can't think of another word right now. We are victims of our circumstances and of our experiences. And so, you know, if I go back to when I started this business, one of the things, the very first thing I did was go to this video training on how to be on camera training, which I'd been on camera multiple times before, but I knew I was going to really have to do it. So I'm like, Laurel, just go, because there's probably going to be some great tips around messaging. And it was a fantastic course. And so I knew I had to be on camera. And then starting the podcast, I'm like, but I'll do it on camera because I know I got to do it. And my mind was always thinking about me being on camera, not thinking about it was a tool to deliver a message. So it took my mind a while to get over the fact that the video wasn't about me. The video was about everyone I was trying to serve. That's what it was about, right? So I could start listening to my message and stop looking at me and how I was delivering it. Mm-hmm. When the fireside thing came up, you know, I had taken, in 2019, I said I wanted to be more visible. So the radio show showed up, the podcast got more, you know, visibility, all that kind of thing started happening. And then as I got into the end of 2021, you know, we all went through COVID, and Jerry and I we were here every week, unless there was a storm or something, we were here every week, masks and all, right? Making it happen. And I love it. I love spending this time with you guys and I get as much learning out of this just from a selfish perspective, from you guys' comments and from y'all being here and from seeing all the countries. I get as much learning as you guys do. And then I hope to turn that around. The plan is to turn that around to give it back, right? To give as good or better than I receive. And so when Fireside came up, I thought, oh, this is really cool. It's kind of like a Clubhouse thing for creators. But then they started using words that were triggers. What about your show, right? Just like last night. Here's your equipment. Are you serious or are you not serious? If you're serious, then we've got this package that, you know, will be more money, blah, 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 blah. But all I heard was, are you serious? You mean I have to buy equipment to be serious? You mean, what? Wait, I got my mic. Messy, right? Because the word triggered me and I had to literally stop. And again, what are the tools that work for you? When I first was starting therapy, one of the things I did was, you know, I physically would put my hands up and say, just stop. And I still find myself doing that sometimes. Stop. Because the physical action, again, short circuit, you got to find what short circuits for you. And so I had to, as I was listening to this last night, and even with Fireside before, I was telling somebody, I'm like, I don't know, you know, they're talking about shows. And she was like, Jerry said it. And then Jenny said it. You guys have met Jenny. Jenny said, she's like, but you've been doing that every week. Since March of 2020, you've had a show. You've been doing a show for an hour every week. So what is it about a show? I'm like, oh, you're right. But words, because show means personality. Personality means actor. Actor means you should have been doing that stuff when you were young and wanting to be in plays and all that kind of stuff, which I didn't want to do. Right? That's where my brain went. My brain went to say that word means all this other stuff, and that's not me.
Goes back to the scripture. Be careful how you hear.
Be careful how you hear.
Yeah.
And that's why I love, and why I called it the Rutledge perspective, because you have to get other perspectives in order for you to really determine what your own is. You got to get things that challenge you. And you have to have people around you to say, but you're doing that already. The woman who is amazing, you will meet her tonight. Again, she was on, was she on last week? No, she'll be on the next two shows on Fireside, the next two podcasts. She was my successor at my last job. And I remember when I told her, I'm like, look, I'm out and you're my successor. You know what, Laurel? I'm in the job I love. I'm in the job. This is the job. I'm in the job I love. I love this job. I'm like, I know, but you're my successor. But I'm in this job. I mean, back and forth, right? I'm like, no, see, because right person, right time. I was the right person to get that organization transition to a spinoff, to get everybody's departments up and running, to build an HR department. I was the right person to do that. And that took a lot because of the environment. I was not the right person to take it to the next level because I was tired. I just didn't have it in me anymore. I just didn't. And so she was the right person for the right job at the right time for what they needed. But she wasn't hearing that. What she heard was, you mean I got to not do what I'm doing now? Because I love what I'm doing now. As Jerry said, you got to get still so you can hear it the right way. And it's a good friend of mine, I'm like, listen, you got to be careful that you're not listening for the message that you want to hear. Don't listen for the message that you want to hear. If you want to be a surgeon, that's what you really, really want to do. You want to be a surgeon. And yet you hate math. You hate science. It's not where you want to show up. You really don't. You're not really a caregiver. You don't really want to. Why do you want to be a surgeon again? Or do you want to be a researcher, right, that uses surgical skills to do other things? And is it really surgery or is it prosthetics? Is it, what is it? But only when you get quiet and really discern what is it that you're hearing. Because if you say my calling is to be a surgeon, but all this other stuff doesn't add up, is your calling really to be a surgeon, or is your calling to be in medicine? Because there's a whole lot of ways to be in medicine that don't require being a surgeon. Right? There's a whole lot of ways to do a show now without being on TV. So use that silence to ask why. Why are you confused? Why is it that you want? Why is this not working? Why does this feel like it's the right thing, but it doesn't seem to be working out? Why? And then really listen for the answer. Really ask yourself lots of questions. Be curious about you. Why don't I like this? Why is this so hard for me? Am I just tired? Right? Ask the questions and then answer them honestly. Because you can lie to a lot of people, but you can't lie to yourself.
That's true.
Answer them honestly. And be okay with whatever the answer is. Because see, part of the problem, I think, with being silent too is judgment. We judge ourselves. We may not be okay with what we see or hear in that silence when we just have to spend time with us. But if you approach it with curiosity, if you approach yourself with curiosity, with compassion, with no judgment, your ability to ask those questions and actually find an answer grows exponentially. If you approach it with judgment, I can't believe I can't do that. Why can't I do that? Watch your tone, even if it's silent and in your head, because your mind and your heart hears that. Your body hears that. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's really good. I'm in the middle of it right now. It's really about traumatic brain injuries, but it talks about how our bodies recall and hold on to experiences, right? At the cellular level. So when you're speaking negative, that's what people always say, speak positivity over your life. Don't speak negativity, and depending on who you hear it from, right? It sounds real woo-woo. And depending on how genuine they are. But there's some truth in what you hear and how it translates and manifests in how it shows up in your body and how it shows up in how you show up. So if you're constantly berating yourself, if you're constantly asking yourself why with judgment and without compassion, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. You're not going to get the answer that you really want or need because you're not giving yourself that space in the silence. Silence is hard. And I don't mean, because some people hear me say, we got to be silent, just be still, just be inactive. I don't mean being inactive because there are times to rest. I don't mean restful silence. I don't mean rejuvenation. I mean active silence. Active silence. I am being silent on purpose because there's something I'm trying to figure out. There's somewhere I'm supposed to be. There's something, things are just off kilter. I need to be silent and figure this out. It's active silence. Listening actively to you, discerning, understanding, questioning, being curious about what's going on. Active silence. Now, we also need the rejuvenation silence where you just go, you have a massage, you just have a cup of tea, you're just watching the sunset, listen to the birds. We all need that too, to rest and regroup. But active silence is where you can get some answers to what you really need.
I said that this morning. I took yesterday off because I had been watching the news the whole weekend. It's like a bad accident. You just can't stop watching.
Right.
And I knew that it was not good for me to sit there and watch that news like that. But that night I was feeling agitated. I was like, ugh. And I was like, I just don't have it in me to perk people up to date.
Yes.
So I took a mental health day yesterday, and then I actively went and got some plants to supersede whatever you're going to try to do. But I actively went out there, and it gave me a piece to come in here and do what I needed to do. So you're right, because you got to know what you have to do for you for the long haul.
Yes.
How long are you going to be doing what you're doing? You're going to need to hear from God, or whoever you're listening to is going to give you some direction on what's your next move. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to do that because we don't want to hear what we're going to hear, but the thing we're going to hear is what we need.
And seen. Okay. The thing that we need, right? The thing that we need. And you're not always going to like what you hear. Nobody said life was easy. It's not easy. And especially if you're pursuing purpose, it's not easy. But there is a message in your experience that someone else needs to hear, right? You may be able to help someone avoid the mistakes you made, but that doesn't mean they're not going to make their own. But at least they don't make the ones that you made, right? So get still. Get into active silence. Actively understand and discern what it is you need. Find your triggers, right? Find your tools that can help you move forward. All right?
Can I say this? Please don't let other people rush you out of that active silence either.
Yes.
Because people will. You have to set healthy boundaries. If you know that you're being silent for a reason, I see so many people sometimes will hit me on my timeline. Answer the phone. I'm calling you. I know that. I'm actively silent on purpose. I see it.
Yes, so right.
I don't let people rush me out of those times that you have to have that active silence.
You do. You cannot. You know your process.
Yeah.
You know your process. Some people's processes are fast. Some people's processes are slow. And some people have both, depending on what it is they're trying to process. So honor yourself with whatever your process is. Honor yourself with the silence and move forward actively in that silence to get where you need to be.
Good morning to Sherry Duff.
Good morning.
To Annette Phillips over in New York City this morning.
Hey, ladies.
And those just coming on, if you're just now jumping on, please check out the rebroadcast.
Yes, love it. Thank you, everybody. We will be here next week, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time, since we lost an hour. Central Daylight Time next Tuesday. Look forward to seeing you then. See you on Fireside Thursday night. Bye.